let me say first that it's my great pleasure to be here. And I have to say as well that my first impression is that this is a very intense and lively intellectual environment, and that people have brought quite interesting and challenging questions to me. And I very quickly have become aware that there are ongoing conversations in philosophy and social science and literature, in feminism, that are quite impressive, quite vital. First of all, I think many young people believe that going to the university will provide them with skills and provide them with tools to work and to advance economically, to secure a position, a job that will allow them to live their lives with ease, or even with a sense of promise. And of course, sometimes universities do that. They provide all kinds of skills and all kinds of tools. But I think what is maybe less well appreciated about the university, and maybe most important, is the fact that it is one of the few places in society where we get to discuss ideas and values. We get to think about our own histories. We get to reconsider what we were taught as children. We get to find our own way, come up with our own view, and learn how to support or demonstrate a thesis, an interpretation, a view that is one's own. I think in almost any class in the university, you also have to learn language. You have to learn how to communicate, how to present your findings, your views, how to read another text, how to establish an interpretation. What does it mean to provide evidence? What counts as evidence? And I think that's true whether one is studying history or literature or philosophy, but it's also true in the computer sciences, which now more than ever are concerned with the basics of communication. So whether we're writing a poem or sending a text, it seems to me that we're involved in basic questions about how to communicate with one another and how to make plain what we think and what we know, and how to find out whether what we think and what others think is right or not, or is well-founded, or whether it's worth challenging. I do think the university is a place where we're exposed to ideas that are new and different. Sometimes that happens when students meet one another and they come from different parts of the country, or they come from another country. They come from a different background. They have a different set of beliefs. So whatever set of beliefs you grow up with in your home or your neighborhood or your community can sometimes be strongly challenged at the university when you meet someone from another region who speaks another language, who has a different perception of the country or a different way of thinking about the country's history. So those can be unsettling moments. I think those can be moments of surprise, of something unexpected. But it also, I believe, provides an opportunity, sometimes in the classroom and sometimes out of the classroom, to rethink our ideas of the world and what it means to belong to a university or to a larger community that has and houses diverse perspectives. I think that we're more free to debate political points of view and cultural beliefs in the university than we are on the street, or maybe even in the workplace, because the university is in its ideal form, and I think very often in its real forms, a place where those ideas can and should be debated, even if they're unsettling or difficult. It's a place to experience and pass through the difficulty of learning that others don't always see the world in the same way that you do. I think it makes you into a more capacious person, a more worldly person, someone capable of entertaining a variety of perspectives and perhaps sometimes letting go of what one believes in order to acquire a deeper or more well-informed idea of the world. I do think that one thing that university students find is that there's still certain values that are more highly prized than other values. Do you have to show that the work you do is useful? Do you have to show that it has an impact? Do you have to show that it is not just profitable, but in some ways recognized within a larger scientific or technological community? The arts and the humanities have to struggle when our values become defined through some of those market values. But it does seem to me that the university is a place where you can reflect on market values. Why and how did market values become the ultimate value in the university, even in the free university? How do we think about the value of the arts in public life? How do we think about the value of literature? Not just the life of imagination, but also the important ways in which we can consider alternate views of reality through reading a literary text and being productively displaced from our everyday understanding. Or philosophy, what's possible, what's right, what can we hope for? How do we understand justice? Well, the political sciences are terribly important because they help us think about the contemporary forms of power that inform our lives. Why is it so difficult to keep a job, and why is it that the job you get may not be the one you can keep? What has happened to labor? What's happened to the economy? How do we think about liberal democracy during these times where there seems to be so much economic anxiety and actual financial crisis? How do we think about the history of Marxism? How do we think about present-day socialism? How do we compare systems, economic and political? What aspirations do they embody? What kind of world do we want to build or build together? I do think if we consider the meaning of politics, it really is a question of considering how we want to build the world together and what kind of world we want to live in together. That's something we can reflect on in the university, maybe thinking the idea of politics in that large and ideal sense is one of the tasks of the university. You know, in my view, reading and writing and listening and debating are already forms of activity. So one finds oneself in the classroom debating all kinds of viewpoints and maybe hearing some viewpoints for the first time, as I suggested. And then the beautiful thing about the university is that the conversations continue as you leave the class and in the hallway and maybe in the cafe or in the street or in some club. Sometimes students stay up very late debating ideas that were generated in the class or wanting to read texts together. And I think it's on the basis of reading and debating that people start to practice politics in a way. It's the part of deliberation and reflection that belongs to democracy more broadly. So forms of activism can emerge organically from our reading and writing. You can actually study the history of activism, what worked and what didn't. You can study the contemporary conditions of your lives and think, well, where do I want to make an intervention, or what do I have as a resource or as a strength that might work to make things better in this world? And we all have different strengths. We have different things to bring. There's not one form of activism. We might work really well with people. We might prefer to be home writing an editorial. We might work with in issues of ecology or migration or the Roma or women's equality or economic justice. We could think of many issues pertaining to the young or to the old, where some of us have particular talents. But I think the idea is to know the world and to change the world. And we don't change the world well without knowing it. And if we know it well, we do sometimes get moved to change it.